We'd like to say thank you to everybody that is attending. It looks like we've got a few people here. As with most, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon here in Orlando. I'm not sure where everybody is joining us from, but we appreciate that you've joined us. Today, we are going to be talking about engineered water. And let's see if we can get this rolling for everybody here. So as it says here, I am the host of the program today. I am David Thompson, the director here at the Academy of Cleaning Excellence. I'm also an ISSA accredited certification trainer, president of the Green Clean Institute, and also host of my own show here, right live from Orlando, Beyond Clean with Dave. I am not new to the industry, and we're not going to talk about the age of people today. So our next presenter is Matt Montag from Clean Core Technologies. Matt, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Sure. As Dave said, my name is Matt Montag with Clean Core Technologies. We are based in Omaha, Nebraska, where I've lived my entire life, and over half my life has been spent in the janitorial distribution industry, working for different manufacturers, had my own distributorship for several years, and also spent many years working for a Midwest distributor as well. So not new to the industry as well, just a seasoned veteran, but not as seasoned as Dave.
Well, that's okay. We won't hold that against you, Matt. And next we have Larry Smith with Pathosands. Larry, would you mind telling our viewers who you are and why you're here?
Sure, great. Well, thank you, Dave, for the opportunity of being here. I always love to have the opportunity to get out and preach about the benefits of engineered water. My background is about 15 years in the industry, so I'm obviously the youngest one by far. And I got involved in electrolyzed water in 2004 and couldn't believe it. It was too good to be true. How is it possible that we can eliminate all these chemicals? And yet it's going to happen. 2009, the company I was with was acquired by a giant chemical company and closed down, but we've managed to persevere and continue on with our projects of eliminating chemicals from the workplace and from the home.
Well, it sounds like we've all got a little bit of different varied experience in the industry, and what we're here today to talk about is engineered water. And the webinar should take about an hour of time. Excuse me. We do have a question and answer session set up here at the end. So as you see in your program, you do have a question and answer box. So if you want to put in questions during the broadcast, we would appreciate that. And then the three of us will try to get to those questions at the end for you. So the very first thing that I want to do here is I want to put up a poll question. And if I can get to that right here, I'm going to launch this poll question. Now I will read this to you, although you probably can't see it yet. It says, have you used an engineered water system? So your choices are never, yes, once a long time ago, or yes, didn't like it, or yes, and we still currently do. So I'm going to launch that poll, and I'd ask for the attendees to go ahead and vote on that. So gentlemen, I think that the thing here is as we start this, you know, there's various different clients that have been working out in the workplace and have heard about engineered water at some level of some sort. As I see some of the votes coming in here, it looks like 83% say they've never used it. 25% at this point say yes, and they still currently do. So it looks like we have more people on today that have not used engineered water than have used it. And if you have been using it, we appreciate that. So maybe we can help explain some of the other questions that you might have. So that being said, this is an engineered water webinar, and hopefully we can bring some insight to those people that haven't used it. And what this all is folks, is this is about on-site generation. So if you've never seen this before, this is about generating your product right at the point of use in your facility. This is not about shipping the product into a location and having to pay for the shipping and warehousing and handling of it. So what we have here is we have three different sizes of generators. This one is a small generator, a tabletop. You simply pour your water in, hook it up to electricity. add some other things to it, and out comes your product. In this case here, this unit actually generates the product in it. It is mobile. As you can see, it's on wheels. So this is at point of use. It's self-contained. It holds its own water. You simply add electricity and you get your product. Now, for those that have large auto scrubbers or mass amounts of carpet cleaning to do, or they're filling numerous amounts of spray bottles, then you have all of the other type of units, which are the larger units, which, there's many different types, and this is just an example of one. So we're going to try to talk today about these three different types and on-site generation. Now, we've passed on a little bit through the early adopter stage. I can tell you that I was involved with some more than 10 years ago, and over the last 10 years, things have advanced quite somewhat. So if you're one of those current users, you probably have recognized that these things have changed. If you've never seen one, we appreciate the fact that you're getting into it now and may not have the extra baggage that we have had because of past mistakes that the industry has made. Now, cleaning and sanitizing and disinfection, a lot of people say that, I'm going to clean the surface and then I'm going to disinfect it. What I'd like to explain to you today is that I promote more of a process. If I'm working on a surface and I want to actually disinfect it, I want you to understand that you need to clean that surface first and then disinfect it. Now, that means that this is a process. It's a two-step thing. And we're going to talk about that as we go on. So, our first presenter would like to talk about Aqueous Ozone.
Thanks, Dave. Aqueous Ozone is part of the engineered water segment. What's unique about it is this, though. There really isn't anything else added to the water, to the regular tap water that you're using, other than ozone. So it's a unique way of infusing ozone gas with nanobubble technology directly into the water source. So the nanobubbles really are unique in that they help the solution stay active longer, and they do a much better job of getting into some of those micro cracks and crevices in a lot of the surfaces we clean with. But it is definitely an engineered water product. The unique part about it is all it is tap water and ozone gas.
So that's the first type of system that we're going to explore this afternoon. And now we're going to talk about the second type. Larry? Great,
thank you, David. Well, hypochlorous acid, sodium chloride are a couple of different systems that are out there presently. The sodium chloride is used with water, electricity, and it creates two solutions. It creates a cleaner, which is sodium hydroxide, and it creates a disinfectant, which is hypochlorous. And the fascinating thing is hypochlorous is actually what's in your body that helps to kill bacteria. And the great thing, keep in mind that, nothing's going to find its way around David's solutions. Okay, bacteria is not going to survive against ozone, and bacteria is not going to survive against our product either. And that's important because there's a lot of products out there that'll tell you that, well, we'll kill 99.9%. Well, unfortunately, that percentage that they left over there, that's the superbugs. That's the stuff that we really need to be careful of. So that's a little bit about hypochlorous acid and sodium hydroxide from a sodium chloride system.
So as we talk about this, there are several different issues that we need to talk about, and this is understanding the terms of on-site generation. So the first thing I'd like to talk about here is that there is no such thing in our industry for doing this process as chemical-free. I know that that is a buzzword that's been used, or a phrase, if you will. What we are talking about here is that in these systems in engineered water, there is no added dyes. So you won't find a purple color or a green color with engineered water. You'll also find that there's no added fragrance. So we're not going to be fighting a lemon fragrance with a pina colada fragrance here. And the other two things is that there is no petroleum-based products or bio-based products. So don't look for those as well. I think the two gentlemen will cover this quite a lot, but I just kind of wanted to get past that right here at the onset of our webinar this afternoon, that there is no such thing as chemical-free. Now, I will let the gentleman talk about engineered water and what we're trying to do.
Well, let me start and just talk a little bit about the fact that you generate this on site. You know, that's such a key point that David made earlier. We're going to generate a cleaner and we're going to generate a disinfectant on site. So when you think about that long term, when you think about green, I mean, we can install a system that's going to last 5 or 6 years, which means you don't have to buy chemicals every week. But the green factors are just, you know, well, I'll give you a reference. Michelle Thatcher, she's the CEO of the U.S. Green Chamber of Commerce. Her comments about electrolyzed water and engineered water are just amazing. She calls them a game changer in sustainability industry. And that's what we're in. That's what we're trying to do, generate sustainable items out there for our clients.
So that being said, let's talk about Aqueous Ozone in that and quantify it there.
Sure. Combining the on-site generating capabilities with Aqueous Ozone. Aqueous Ozone is Mother Nature's best oxidizer. It's stronger than bleach, but it's safe and natural. So if your employees or if an end user gets Aqueous Ozone splashed on them, all they did was get wet. So the beauty of the on-site generating side of it, though, is since ozone is made with oxygen, and since humans require oxygen to live, we can produce ozone through our ozone generators by just an electrical charge and oxygen, which is what we do in our equipment on the Aqueous Ozone side. So now we're able to take a unit directly into the actual room, the point of use for the product, create the cleaner there by using tap water and oxygen combined together. It creates some really unique cleaning opportunities that we really haven't had before. And when we're done, the only thing that goes down the drain is the soil that we removed and the water. The ozone converts back into oxygen right after it's used. So it's easy to handle and safe for everyone as well.
Well, what you're talking about here too, Matt, is that there's an abundance of oxygen. We just need to put it to work.
Right. We just need to put it to work. Well said.
I think about that, and I don't mean this, but I think about a fire, and the more oxygen you put to the fire, the better it works. So, you know, if I put oxygen to water, the better it works.
Well said. And Matt, I just want to add on to your point about the sustainability. When you think with an on-site generator, we eliminate manufacturing plants of chemicals. We eliminate cartons, we eliminate bottles, shipping, all those things go away. And
transportation and all that, right?
Right, all that goes
and that's
away.
Not even including the where does it go when we're done using it? All that, we'd like to think it all gets recycled, Larry, but it doesn't. A lot of it ends up in landfills.
That's right. You know.
Okay, so let's talk about hypochlorous acid and its part in water.
Yeah, well, what people say is it's a weak acid, and I sometimes take umbrage at that because it kills so quick. If you look at just about any product that you're using, that you're presently buying, having delivered to you every week, it says spray on surface and leave wet for 10 minutes. Well, number one is David tells me not to spray anything on a surface. I need to throw it onto my microfiber. But really think about it. So we don't clean that way, and so we're not taking use of those chemicals that are presently being used. Hypochlorous will kill most bacteria within 10 to 15 seconds. So during your normal cleaning process, you are killing bacteria. And that's everything. That's all bacteria. Again, it's in your body that kills bacteria.
But I think, Larry, what you're talking about here is that it's weak in the fact that it's not harmful to us, but it's not weak in the fact of what it does.
Well said. Well said.
So the other part of it?
Well, sodium hypochlorite. You know, I'll tell you a story about something that just happened down in Miami this week. I'm sorry, in Orlando. There was a hotel where they took bleach, which is what sodium hypochlorite is, and they mixed it with something else. And 3 people ended up going to the hospital. So I haven't seen any follow-up on that or anything. But, you know, bleach is very, very effective. But engineered water is probably 80 to 100 times more effective on killing bacteria than bleach. So in spite of the fact that everybody is using it, and you should not use it, you shouldn't have it in your work environment at all. There are much better solutions out there.
So we'll talk more about that as we go forward. And one of the things that we need you to understand as a user of product is that there is a difference in these EPA numbers that are being touted or that you need to look for. So we kind of wanted, before we went into this any further, wanted to kind of help explain this a little bit. So as you can see in the diagram here, that there is a company name, and this identifies the company that the unit has been established for. There is a registration number and an establishment number. Now, you won't see all three of these things on one, but you'll see the company name and possibly a registration number or an establishment number. Now, an establishment number is different than a registration number, and as we go through this, we'll let you know what that is. Now, the establishment number, as it says here, is for the product, for the, not the product, but for the unit that is actually producing the active ingredient that is a pesticide. And we'll talk about pesticides here in a moment. So I think that we wanted to start with Larry, because I think you like this idea of pests.
I get a kick out of it. You know, we're governed by the EPA, and we need to meet their regulations. But it's interesting that under those regulations are pests such as rodents. Rats are covered by the EPA. I haven't quite got a handle around that one. But then also on top of that, we have insects, which some of our products are effective against, and then needless to say, bacteria. So the EPA governs those arenas when it comes to sanitizing, cleaning. When it comes to food product, you know, it's the FDA, but that's a whole other issue.
Yeah, and so what we're talking about here is we're talking about what the EPA is registering these products as. So we wanted you to understand the differences in these. And Matt, I think you wanted to talk about furthermore pesticides.
Yeah, it is. It can be confusing, all these different terms, because they're similar, but there's a lot of misinformation. A pesticide is actually, that's the solution that is produced, whether it is a bug pesticide that you're buying at Home Depot or at Walmart, or a pesticide that is killing germs that one of our units is creating, or a synthetic chemical that we've used for generations that we've been used to spraying all over. These are products, these are solutions that can be a combination of different components, but they're designed to kill pests. And that's what the registration number is all about.
And so the next part of that is the device itself.
Right. The pest control device, in our case, with our Aqueous Ozone machines, or the actual pieces of equipment, they all have establishment numbers. These are devices that create what the EPA calls a pesticide, something that can kill germs. It may not kill the rat that Larry loves so much on that screen, but it can kill some of the germs and viruses that are on the surfaces that we're cleaning. These units have an establishment number with the EPA. This says, and every time they're sold, we as manufacturers report to the EPA, I believe it's on a quarterly basis, we sold this many of these units to these locations in the United States. It doesn't mean that the solution has a registration number. It just means that the solution that is created by that equipment is a pesticide in the EPA's mind.
So gentlemen, as we have went through this, what I'm also hearing us talk about is the fact that we're talking about the fact that the product that comes out of these has the ability to do this, but because we're sending these to multiple locations throughout the country, throughout the world, we don't have control of the water that's going in, the amount of solution that is being generated. And so this is why there is an EPA number on the capabilities of the unit, not on the output.
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure that we all got this right and that our audience can understand, because Larry, I think you brought up food service and the fact that whenever we go into a food service atmosphere, there's a little bit of a change in what we need, and the protocols are just a little bit different.
Very much so. You know, you need to be NSF certified. You know, when I look at, if you go online and Google any engineered water, you'll come up with all sorts of systems, and they're from all over the world. And some of them are you know, unbelievable prices. Some of them are ionized water, saying that, you know, we can kill everything. But you really need to have your product certified. And you know, our systems, most are made here in the U.S., and so we have that added advantage of being able to react to whatever is out there that the consumer wants.
Well, and I think that this is a requirement. I found this out early in the, as we say, in that adopter stage, whenever we had a unit that was being put into a hotel and they were cleaning the break room area and also the customer service area for the food. And they said you can't use that unless it has an NSF label on it. And at that time, the manufacturer wasn't putting it on there. And so this is what we were talking about earlier, folks. You know, we went through that early adopter. We've all learned these little things. And now you won't see that happening anymore because you will see this NSF label. And this is what you should look for if you're actually working in a dietary area. So what is all of this about? This is basically, as the two gentlemen have talked about, is about cleaning and disinfecting, processing these surfaces, and removing what microbial life is there. You know, it's not always about killing, but we always want to make sure that we're taking care of this with non-toxic solutions. This is the big thing. What is it that we're doing is important, but even more so important is that we're not harming ourselves. We're not leaving the surface in a situation that can be harmful to a child, an elderly folk, somebody with an infectious issue. And as we all grow older, and I can say that, gentlemen, I'm doing that, we become more susceptible to these issues. And this Bioload is what we're actually talking about, not bringing into the buildings.
Right. The Bioload is really it's an issue that has been around our industry for a long time, and we haven't done a great job of dealing with it because these products and the chemicals that we've used, the synthetic chemicals that we've used for years will work, and the pathogens and the germs and things can develop an immunity to it. So they almost become one. There's a big glob of chemical residue from various applications of different spray chemicals we've applied to a surface, built up with the soil that wasn't removed, and it almost becomes a barrier around the soil. Not almost, it becomes a barrier around the soil. Well, adding more chemicals to that really isn't the answer because it's just adding more of a barrier in a lot of cases. Agitation is a big part of it. We've got to get on our hands and knees and scrub and get things off. But the nice thing is engineered water is able to break through these bioloads in most cases. And the pathogens have not built up an immunity to the engineered water yet. So we're able to flush all that old soil away. And yes, there's still, if there's a big buildup, it's still going to be some agitation that's needed. These aren't magic silver bullets that can make all the bioload go away by themselves. But now we have solutions that can work with us instead of against us and adding to the problem. And engineered water really is helping us take the bioload by storm.
So, you know, as you saw there was a colored picture of what we're pushing down the drain, and that leads into this part, Larry, of what are we actually doing that most of us don't ever see?
Well, you know, a lot of these chemicals presently are going down the drain, and they're going into septic systems, and they're going into water treatment centers. And unfortunately, then they end up in the ocean, or they end up being sprayed on the lawn someplace. If you're putting our solutions, our engineered water down the drain in a septic system, it's not going to kill the bacteria that's down there now presently making that system work.
Correct.
Because by the time it gets there, there's no hypochlorous left or there's no ozone left, which is absolutely perfect. And then when it comes to wastewater systems, again, the same thing. When our solutions get that far into a wastewater treatment center, there's no solution left. Now, on one of the products, we have a little bit of sodium hydroxide that might be going there, but that's used in a lot of wastewater treatments anyway. So it's a perfect as far as, you know, eliminating that product from going down the drains, because if it goes down the drains, you know where it's going to end up.
So what you're saying here, Larry, is you're saying that regardless of whether we're in a metropolitan area or we're in a rural area that may be using septic treatment, we're not affecting in an adverse way or making the job even more difficult for others when we use engineered water systems.
That's correct. And, you know, when it first leaves the facility where the units are in, it's actually killing the bacteria that's in the drain. And then as it goes further down. So that's another great thing. That helps eliminate odors and bacteria coming out in other ways.
Matt, you're shaking your head, so I know that you got something you want to say here.
No, I think that's a component we often forget, Larry just mentioned, is the residual leftover, whether it's ozone or hypochlorous, whatever solution we're using in engineered water, does help us keep our drains clean. And that's where so many odors and problems can come out of drains. You're not getting that type of effort when you're using synthetic chemicals.
So rather than pouring that other standard thing that everybody said to pour down the drain, we can use engineered water, pour it down the drain, and not have any side effects.
Perfect.
Correct.
Perfect.
Good job. Now let's talk about immunity of microbes. I mean, whenever we were talking about this, I really like this little picture here, folks, of these small little things growing larger. This is kind of a cartoon, but it's not cartoonish.
Right. That's a great point. It isn't cartoonish because the immunity that so many of these microbial lives and germs and viruses develop mean that they're hanging around when we think we've removed them. And if we spray a traditional, whether it's a quad or phenolic, whatever disinfectant on a surface, and we wipe it right away, we think, well, the label says I sprayed it and I wiped it, so I killed all these germs. And we didn't, because we don't follow label directions. First of all, we don't leave that contact time, and synthetic chemicals need a longer contact time than engineered water. Plus, the germs and viruses in many cases have developed immunities to them. Well, guess what? Now with engineered water products, we don't have that problem. They don't have an immunity to these new ways of cleaning, and so we're going to do a better job, a more effective job of removing them, and that's what it's all about.
Well, Matt, when you mentioned, killing some of the bacteria, even these people that tell us that if we clean 99.9% of the bacteria, it's that 0.1% that's left. That's where our superbugs are coming from, and that's why hospitals, 100,000 people a year die in hospitals due to hospital-acquired infections. That's how serious. That's 2.5 times more than who die in automobile accidents. That's how serious.
I don't want to get off on that one today, guys. I mean, It's a subject we can talk about for a long time because, what we're talking about here is we're talking about getting down to the microbes, which we can't see. So we have to, in some cases, and we've also done this for many years, take it on a little bit of blind faith that actually what is happening is. And I'm not sure, but I spent a lot of my time in Missouri. It was a show me state. And, I believe that the best thing to do is remove it. And I think that's what we're going to talk about here.
Well, that's that two-step process, David, that I've known you preaching for many, many years. You need to clean first. You need to remove that biomass, right? Because that biomass is water, oxygen, and it could be any organic material. And that's where the bacteria is surviving. So if we can do something about the oxygen, if we can do something about any other nutrients that are there, we have a real good chance of them killing and removing any bacteria that's left. And when I say remove bacteria, I'm saying 99.999% of the bacteria.
Well, we're not only just talking about bacteria, we're talking about viruses and fungi and all of the microbes that are causing the issue. It's one of these things that we've said, and I think we want to hone in on this at this point, this is about removing the food source. If you remove the food source, I can't live. And ironically, these things that create the problems for our human beings are the things that we live on.
Well said.
Absolutely.
Well said.
I couldn't resist the picture of the guy with the hamburger and the chef's hat. It just was, it spoke my language. This is what I live on. That's what they live on. You remove that, I die, they die. I just want to stay alive and I want to kill them.
Right.
And I don't have to do this through a chemical that's toxic to my body. And this is why we're talking about this. We're not saying that this is the only thing, folks, and we're not saying that you don't have to have some of the other products, because there's pros and cons to all of this. And while we may be talking about a lot about this, what we want to say is that this is not magic water. It is not something that you're going to see us rolling around in our covered wagon selling snake oil out of the back end of it. This is a product that is effective. It has went through that early adopter stage, and it has proven and continues to prove, if you give it a chance, that it is not a hoax. It is here to stay. This is not a new chemistry. This is simply using what has been here for many, many years, and other industries, especially water treatment, pool systems, Many aquariums throughout the world use these technologies and have for decades. We're just now using it in our atmosphere or in our environment. But that all being said, gentlemen, there is an investment.
Well, like anything good, there's an investment, but this investment, I've never installed a system that hasn't paid for itself in a year. And whether you're spending, $2,500 or $10, $12, $14, $15,000, the return on the investment is there. But you also have lease models, you have rental models, so there's different ways as far as that initial investment. And a little bit further along, we'll get into the investment as far as education and training and those kinds of things. But honest to goodness, never installed a system that hasn't paid for itself in less than 12 months. So it's going to happen.
Matt, do you need to add a little to that?
Well, I think Larry said it really well. The investment in an engineered water system may be more upfront than traditional synthetic chemicals that I can spread out over weekly deliveries or monthly deliveries, but it's tough to quantify what are the costs of doing that as well. I have to write a check each time. I have to issue a purchase order each time. I have to receive product, and my guys have to move it onto shelves. So there's more of a cost to the way that we're used to cleaning now than I think we realize. And we mitigate all those costs with an engineered water solution like we can now have.
Yeah,
so
I think it would be interesting.
That upfront cost, it will return on you really, really quickly.
And Matt, to your point, I think it would be very interesting if we had a way that we could tag a bottle of product from the time it left the warehouse of the manufacturer till the time it actually got used by the end user and see what the actual cost was all the way along. I think we would be astounded at what it really is costing. So, investment is something we're already doing. And as these gentlemen are saying, you are going to have some upfront investment. Now, the other thing that you need to invest in is education. Now, that's what you are doing today. If you're on this webinar, whether you're watching live or the recorded version, you are investing in your education. And I think this is what we're saying. Just because you heard about it before doesn't mean that that's the way it is today. Education is something that's changing. We've been talking about this. I would say that every 3 years, what we used to know has changed. And in some cases, it changes even faster. Now, the other part of education is the training part. That's the implementation of what you have learned. You may have learned a lot today, hopefully that you will have, but you also have to implement that education. And that's what I think you want to talk about, Matt.
Right. The implementation is really important. As someone I put my kids through school selling chemicals for a long time in this industry. And it was always a great opportunity to go in when we have a new way of cleaning or a new technology that our frontline supervisors and our day-to-day custodians would see the benefit correctly and they would want to do it. But if we didn't get the folks up above to buy into it, well, we didn't get the money to pay for it. And the reverse was true. We'd go in and present an opportunity to a facility that would save them money because of new technology. And the higher ups would say, gosh, that's a great idea. But then they'd try and cram it down on the frontline staff. And both of those situations create problems. We need to get a buy-in from the higher and from the frontline folks in that engineered water is a new way of doing what we've done for generations. It's a better way of cleaning. It's a safer way of cleaning, but there's some differences to it. And to effectively implement this at a new location, at a customer or a school, we'll say, or a hospital, it takes some work on the training side, but it also takes some work before you get them to buy in, where you show them the benefits of what they're doing, not just the almighty dollar, but the environment, both globally environment and the environment in their building. That helps you get the buy-in from the top end, from the lower side, that makes an implementation go easier. Larry, what do you think?
Matt, I think what you're talking about here is the fact that, we can't just take this engineered water and use it the same way that we have used all the synthetic chemicals, bio or petroleum, that we've used before. They work differently. We've got to change our mindset. Right. And that's where I say, educate the mind, then implement the practice.
Well, David,
absolutely.
Yeah. And David, if I can add to that, the implementation is the easy part. It's the training of the people after that to make use of the systems the way that they should be. And it's ongoing training. And I know you stress this on a regular basis. I 100 years ago, I spent a year washing floors in a supermarket nights, and I used to take that mop bucket and start in one aisle and see how many aisles I could get done before I changed, the mop. I mean, I wasn't trained. They just said, well, wash the floors. So I washed the floors. And on top of that, I took Top Job, Mr. Clean, and Less Toil, mixed them all together.
Oh,
Yeah, I know. I was a victim of marketing, and that's why I have fewer brain cells. So it's ongoing as you have new people come in. One of your former students told me that he was in a Walmart a couple weeks ago, and he saw a woman riding one of those big floor washers, and she was just dragging stuff behind it and on the mop, and she was running into things. She said, well, he said something. Well, it's my first day on the job. There was nobody around that was training her. So, oh gosh.
And gentlemen, this is the unfortunate thing in our industry. This is what we do get from time to time, and I think this kind of comes to the part that we were talking about. This is not something that somebody can just use engineered water only.
Right.
David, you've said 100 times, and I love it, and I tell people about it, that you saved a life today as far as being a custodian, a janitor, whatever it may be. And that's so true, but we don't give enough credence to that, to those people that are out there doing those kinds of things. And so when I look at, cleanability, we can use our products in just about 90-95% of situations where chemicals are being cleaned. Maybe a really dirty toilet bowl won't get cleaned, but if you're cleaning your facility on a regular basis, it should be. Another situation where it might not be working is on some of these floors where you're trying to strip chemicals. But the industry is actually changing over and saying, we don't need to strip floors anymore. We're going to get these concrete floors and high buff, and so there are things changing in that respect.
Well, Larry, the picture that you talked about here about stripping the floor, this is a picture of a concrete floor where I was actually removing paint from the concrete floor. And so, there are these times where we're going to have to use these solvent-based products. We're going to have to use the high acid bowl cleaners.
Yeah,
we have those environments. But folks, what we're saying here is this is probably less than 5% of what you're going to need to do. There's new technologies, there's new programs. We here at the Academy teach a lot of these. By no means are we saying that you can eliminate everything and go completely to engineered water. That is not our message today. Our message is when you can, when it is the time, when everybody has the knowledge and the buy-in, move to something, and we wanted to let you know what it is. Now, I have heard people say, I just can't get it in my building. We want to talk about that a little bit, gentlemen?
Sure. Portability, as you've labeled it there, is really a good point, because, again, traditionally what we've done in our industry is we started off back in the early days, we would sell 55-gallon drums of Windex, which was 54.5 gallons of Lake Michigan water and about a half a gallon of different chemicals to mix in with it. Then we got smarter over time, and we started shipping concentrated chemicals to the end users, where they could take a gallon of a concentrate and make 100 gallons in use if they mixed it correctly. But that was part of the problem. They had a water source, but we were glugging it. And so we think, oh, that looks about 1 ounce per gallon. Then we got better with dilution control systems, which really were a big step forward.
Right.
Well, engineered water is taking us even further. As long as we've got a water source and we've got a power source with electrical parts, we can create the cleaning solution just using tap water, and in most cases, nothing else. And now we've got an opportunity. So all of that packaging, all of that production that was done in Racine or in Ohio somewhere, wherever they ship chemicals from, all that can go away. All that plastic, all the cardboard boxes, all the transportation costs, because now we're doing it not only just in the janitor's closet, but in many cases right where we're using it. Maybe it's a restroom we're cleaning. We're going to create that cleaning solution right there. We don't need to have the big storage room anymore that has 55-gallon drums of chemical concentrates and 5-gallon bibs of different products that we mix up at our place anymore. We can do it all in the room that we're cleaning in most cases.
And also what we can do is we can also do this on the machines. I mean, from different manufacturers, we're actually putting the generating units actually in the machine. So we don't need anything on the wall. We don't need anything in a storage closet. I mean, I see janitor's closets all the time that never have had enough room for the paper towels and toilet paper and the hand soap.
Right.
I agree.
And so, you know, so I think this is the thing here is when everybody says, you know, I can't put it in, folks, you just haven't looked deep enough. And I think this is where we want to talk about one of the last issues when it always comes to this. And that's, you know, things have changed. You know, we don't have the time to go and put the 55-gallon drum up anymore. We don't have the time to dilute the product. And Matt, you and I were talking about this earlier.
Right, the on-demand side of it is really key. I don't have to make 20 gallons and store them and use them throughout the week. I'm only going to make what I need right then, because as I'm creating it, I'm using it. And so all the storage issues go away. That on-demand is really a key part of it.
So I don't have the storage.
Right, exactly. I've eliminated, I've minimized the storage. Again, as we've said, we're not going to get rid of every chemical, but we're going to get rid of 90% plus of what we've had to put in the wall before.
And I think you mentioned earlier the time situations.
Larry, was that you?
Well, I was thinking about that. You know, we talk about the amount of time that it takes to kill bacteria. But the time limits also, when I think about it, is the amount of time that we spend moving boxes of chemicals around within our environment. So there's a number of different areas there that we're going to, you know, it's very, very expensive to have a labor. 1 hour of labor is expensive. It's not just the wage, but it's all the things that are added onto it. And if we can eliminate some of those things, and I think our facilities now can offer not only the savings in the chemical cost, but the savings in the time, which translates to a savings in labor.
Well, and the other thing is as you had spoke to earlier, we're not talking about products that at the minute that it comes out the end of the hose that it's gone inactive. We've moved past those days of the early days. So folks, if you've looked at it before, take another look at it. There's a lot of differences in there. And I think one of the things that we want to talk about at this point, as we're coming close to the end of our webinar today, folks, is that this is all about thinking positive. You know, I think, you know, we all can understand, many of us don't watch the 5 o'clock news. We don't watch the 10 o'clock news until the weather comes on, because the rest of it is so negative and we haven't had a chance to think about the positive things in life. Folks, think about engineered water as the positive parts. There's always a reason not to do something. But I think, gentlemen, this is where we're talking about those frontline workers, the people in the workplace.
Well, I know, I have a special place in my heart for these people that are out there on a daily basis. You know, there was an article just came out recently, fragrances, cleaners, and disinfectants, specifically those three contribute to thyroid cancer.
Oh.
And then a newborn baby is born with 287 synthetic chemicals in their body. I mean, there's just so much negative things out there as to what these chemicals are doing right now. And I look forward to, you know, getting to that situation where we can start eliminating some of those and protecting our employees. And also our employees would be our clients.
Matt, I think you kind of made mention to this a number of times. Would you like to continue that positive thought?
Well, sure. The positive side of it, not only like Larry was saying on the impact on our guests and our employees, on their health and lowering VOCs, but the positive for the triple profit net side of it is, you know, there's less purchasing. There's less purchase orders that need to be cut. There's less checks that need to be cut. There's less receiving time. That whole purchase cycle is easier. We're not storing products anymore. We don't have inventory money tied up with $10,000 worth of glass cleaner concentrate sitting on a shelf anymore. With engineered water, we don't have to do that. We produce what we need when we need it. The savings for the environment, for the distribution side of things. Think about when you're driving around town, you see these big delivery trucks from different distributors and manufacturers, all filled with chemicals that are going to another location, then might get moved by a different vehicle to a third location. All that can go away because we're creating the cleaning solution at the facility. And then lastly, and for many people, this is the biggest part, what do we do with our products when we're done cleaning with them? If I take my empty gallon concentrate of general purpose cleaner and I throw the plastic bottle in the recycle bin, that's great. But a lot of us don't do that. And so that plastic and that cardboard and the chemical residue all get sent to the landfill. And now we've got to deal with it for generations. Engineered water helps us get away from all of that.
So continue that on and keep on going down the drain with it on that, Matt.
Well, exactly. The last point, all of that, once we're done cleaning, and we've done a great job, and this restroom will say is clean and disinfected, and we've used traditional synthetic chemicals to do that, where does it go? It goes down the drain. We take our bucket and we dump it down our slop sink in the janitor's closet, and that goes down, and all that goes into our waterways. Now, hopefully, we've got the right technology at our water plants to filter all that back out before we ingest it again as it gets recycled into drinking water and things. But a lot of times we don't, and that's in the system. It's not only harming humans, but it's harming the environment, the plants and animals. If we can minimize that, we're never going to eliminate that. We understand that, but if we can put less chemical residue down the drain, I think that is a great opportunity for all of us, and I think we should be looking more at it.
Matt, it goes back to just do the right thing, doesn't it?
Right, it really does, Dave. Yeah.
So Larry, let's continue with this positive, because I think, as Matt said, this kind of goes where you were talking with the U.S. Green Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, this is a triple bottom line of sustainability: people, planet, and profit. And I certainly put people first. I know a lot of times when I make a presentation, I talk about the impact on the bottom line, the positive impact on the bottom line. So I switch things around a little bit, but it depends if you're a sustainability person, if you're a bottom line person. We meet all those needs. We meet all those standards, all those requirements for those three areas. We are healthy. We are good for the people. We're great for the planet. And honest to goodness, to the bottom line, we can make a dramatic difference. In some situations, we can take all those chemical expenses right off the bottom line. It goes to the balance sheet, which makes the company look great. So it's a win-win-win.
Well, and I think that's where, I was wanting to talk about this at the end. And, I liken this to much like I've heard about that big floating plastic island out there in the middle of the ocean that we don't see. What's actually going out there? I see these mounds where the waste treatment people have these huge mounds of what we're putting into our landfills. And I think about what is in there. We hear, in St. Louis, I heard about this landfill that was putting off toxic gases, and our facility happened to be within smell shot of that area. This is what we have to think about, folks. At the Academy, we talk a lot about this subject only to make you aware. This is what education is about, is being aware of what's there, thinking positive about what I can do to mitigate the effects on my person as a frontline worker, on those people that are dear to me, to the workers that I work with every day, to the workplace and the people that come into that environment. This is our job. This is what we're here for, is to protect the health of people. That's what our whole reason for being in the facilities maintenance is. I know people say it's to clean the toilet and empty the trash. I want to go just a little bit further than that. It's to save the lives of people that haven't died yet from the exposures that we have the ability to mitigate. So we have went through through this. I do have another polling question that I'd like to bring up. And let me see if I can get to that and bring this here. Learning how to do this, folks. So the last question that we have here for you is, was this webinar useful? You have a choice, not at all, somewhat. I already knew most of this, were extremely helpful and explained a lot. So I'm going to launch that poll. I'd ask you to go ahead and click on the one. We appreciate the time that you spent with us. We have a number of people that have. I haven't seen any questions come up, gentlemen. So I guess there's not going to be much of a question and answer period because there's no questions to answer. But it looks like we about have a 33 split on it's been somewhat helpful. I knew most of this, or it's been extremely helpful. So you know what? I guess nobody said it wasn't worth their time. So we're good, guys.
Sounds great, David. David, I just appreciate your dedication to these issues over the years. I mean, you've been out there a leader in this for so many years, and and a lot of us are catching up to you. And again, just appreciate what you're doing.
Well, you know what? I think some people actually chimed in here a little bit as we were talking, and the poll changed. 50% of the people said it's been extremely helpful, and we went down to 25% on the other two, but we still didn't get anybody that didn't say not at all. So we thank you for spending your time with us. I want to thank Matt Montag for being with us. You see his email here. I'm sure that he would be glad to talk with you about ozone and oxygen, and maybe in water and not in fire. And I think that Larry would love to talk to you about, and I know that he's extremely passionate about hypochlorous and being able to use this in environments and actually leave surfaces safe for people and do it in a safe and healthy way. I'm Dave Thompson. I am the host of this. And as you see, I have a saying that I trademarked. I am a janitor and I save lives. Now that's only because I can only talk about what myself can do, but I believe that if you would follow some of what we've talked about today, you have the ability to do exactly this. If this is the important part of what we do. Gentlemen, I want to say thank you for being with me. I want to thank the audience for being with us. And if you need more information on what we do here at the Academy of Cleaning Excellence, just go to our website or give me a call. We're here to help. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone.
We look forward to seeing you again. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, David.
Thanks.